Call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Stacy, would you please call the roll? If you don't mind, we have Brad Lindbergh here from the Grosse Pointe News. If we could go through a little slower than normal so that we can have everyone wave to Brad and make sure that everyone's names are associated with faces.
That means I have to do full names?
No, first is okay.
Oh, first, okay.
Well, you have two mics, Brad.
Yes, I know I have two mics. Okay, Mike Hinderling.
Here.
Okay, Chad.
Here.
Stedman.
Here.
Tom.
Here.
Okay. Roy.
Here.
Christina.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Larry is not here yet. James.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Mike Bannon.
Here. There we go.
Sarah.
Gotcha.
And I'm Stacy. And Marty McMillan is absent.
Oh, Tom. She did.
That's Christina.
Christina. Okay.
Oh.
I missed that one. Oh, Christina.
All right. Thank you, Stacy. We have minutes from the last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? So moved. And support? Any discussion, changes, comments, questions about the September 27, 2023 minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the September minutes as submitted, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Stay.
The unanimous approval with one abstention. All right. We have a member of the public. Anything you'd like to address the commission on regarding anything that's on our agenda tonight?
I'm here for the Windmill Point Marina review.
Okay. Any other public comments? Moving on, let's move right into programming, Chad.
The first item is brunch with Santa. We've got 3 time slots this year like usual, 9 a.m., 10:30, and 12 p.m. All 3 time slots sold out in one day. We have anywhere between 14 to 17 families per time slot with 55 total individuals at each time slot.
Hey, Chad?
Yes.
Could we do more than the 3 seatings? I mean, did you have a lot of demand that wasn't met by being sold out?
We haven't had that necessarily. It's something we're discussing to see potential extra days. If we want to extend it into something else other than brunch as you get past, the 1, 2 o'clock timeframe. Part of it just depends on some of the logistics with it, how long we could have people coming in and how long we have staff there. We're looking at a couple of other ideas as well for those who can't to still have some meet and greets with Santa. Maybe incorporate some drives up and down Windmill Point drives, maybe something similar to what Grosse Pointe Woods does. By using the trolleys, we might be able to rent those out, look at the lights, listen to Polar Express and come back and have them greet with Santa. But it's possible we might be able to add something on a Sunday or later in the day, take a small break, come back, maybe the second shift of staff.
It could be a separate kind of event, similar but different, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
I believe we could add some more there, and we might look this year too to see how many more families we might be able to sneak into each time slot with allowing them still enough time to meet and get photos with Santa and those kind of items as well.
Cool.
That will include
What day is that?
Saturday, December 2nd. And that will the event will include brunch, crafts, storing photos with Santa, and the trackless train rides. We'll move into youth and senior programs. I'll let Stedman touch a bit on that.
So some of the youth and senior programs that we're
considering for the winter include things such as we have a Bot Masters robotics workshop. They did a workshop with us, I think it was early November. It did pretty well, so we decided to run it again. They're gonna be running some of the kind of similar materials that they ran over, that they talked about during their original workshop. They're gonna do 2 dates of that, December 11th and December 18th. Some other youth programs that we have for the upcoming winter include our art classes. They're gonna start January 11th. They're gonna run until February 15th. So for a total of about 6 weeks. And then we have some new programming such as our ornament and canvas workshops. So the idea was to try to do something that could be tailored towards children and towards our senior members of the community. So we're gonna do a workshop with both seniors and children as well. So the senior one's going to take place, I believe it's December 21st. I'm sorry, not December 21st. It's going to be December 16th, I believe. And then we're also doing the children one, which is December 19th. That's a Tuesday. Some of the other programming that we have for the upcoming winter include a senior and teen sound bath class. So basically those are like meditative classes that can help reduce things such as anxiety, depression. I think it'll be well received by the community. And then some other programming that's not necessarily on here that we're planning on bringing back. The announcement's going to be sometime at the end of this week or next week is our fitness classes. So we did add a new fitness class for the upcoming winter. We added a Zumba class, which I'm super excited about. And then in terms of some more senior programming, I know I was going to work on trying to schedule a time for seniors to come and play some cards as well. So I'm hoping an announcement can go out sometime soon for that as well.
The nice thing with that too is Stephen and I sat down for a bit today too and discussed, we have some open time slots throughout the day in the McKeever Lounge, in the gymnasium. So the nice thing is we don't necessarily have everything coming out right now, but throughout the next years to come, there's still more time and days that we can add new programs. So we've already named off some stuff, but expect to see again in the coming weeks stuff that'll be coming out January, February, March, April, things like that. We've got some more programs coming in. We have another resident who's looking to bring back kind of our tiny tot classes. Right around COVID, those went out, the tiny tots and the pipsqueaks. They've been in touch with our former instructor. So we're excited to see about bringing that back. Late afternoon pickleball leagues, some drop-ins, some power hour opportunities. There's a lot of programming we're going to be bringing in. So the main goal is as many people in the park as often as possible. This is a way we're going to be able to do that. Our ice skating classes will be starting back up once the rink opens, and we know people have crazy busy schedules. So new this year, we're going to add semi-private and private skating lessons as well. So another way for those who aren't able to make the days and time slots that we offer, our instructors are going to work with their schedules the best that they can to allow them to still have instruction at the ice rink. So we're looking forward to that too.
Excellent.
We'll move into athletics. We both touched on that a little bit, but Stephen, if you want to start off with just a couple of those.
Yeah, so some of the ideas that we have for the upcoming winter include the men's drop-in basketball will be returning, along with something new that we're going to try out is a women's drop-in basketball. So the plan right now is to have those take place on the same night, to split the court up, to have men on one side, women on the other side. The plan right now is to run that for about 5 to 6 weeks. Something else that's going to return is our indoor volleyball. As of right now, in the fall, we had 6 teams, so we're hoping to get about at least 8 teams for the winter. And then some pickleball, hoping to add some more pickleball on Monday mornings, just because we have a huge gap in our gym schedule.
Yep, we'll look at drop-in, potentially 1 or 2 weekday AM leagues as well. So we've got some options for some other classes and programs, but pickleball seems to be a popular and nice filler as well.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Where do you stage that? In the gym?
Yep.
Tape? Is that how you mark
Nope,
it?
they're the
On
lines.
the perimeter line?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Three
Thank you.
permanent courts.
You have equipment as well?
Yeah, we have the nets and we supply the
Paddles?
balls, and we do have some paddles in case they forget one.
Okay.
Typically, anyone who's in the league,
No, I get it.
but for the lessons, we do have sets.
Yeah.
So they won't have to have their own for those.
Is there enough room with to use both sides of the gym with the pickleball nets, et cetera, there?
You could potentially have it where if you wanted to have someone run out half the gym and play on one court and run out the other side to play basketball or something like that, you could do that. Your middle court, you'd lose the middle court by putting the divider down. But you could have one rental going on one side playing pickleball and volleyball or basketball or something on the other side.
I just meant in terms of storage, if we're doing the men's and women's drop-in basketball, is there enough room around the edges for the pickleball nets to be out of the area of play for
Yeah.
basketball? Okay.
And I believe too, at times we can move those down the hallway. And at the end of the other hallway, we could put them out at that nice staff could roll them down there if they became any kind of an issue.
All right. Anything else on programming?
That should do it. Any questions?
How many pickleball courts do we have?
3.
Thank you.
All right, Windmill Point Park.
Yeah, just wanted to give everyone an update on the playground project at Windmill. We should see hopefully about 90% of the construction process finished by the end of this week. We were looking at today, but there's still a few more items they need to install. They've been there early and they've been staying until past dark the best that they can. Bob Lucas, who's on the foundation, has been down there almost every day, almost the entire day that they've been working. So he's been keeping a close eye on the project and he's been very impressed with their work ethic. So it's been nice to have him overseeing it. We stopped together, looked things over. But I think everybody's gonna be quite excited when that project's completed, and they are looking at probably the end of this month, maybe right at the 1st of December, they'll be completely finished with it. The netting for a couple of the items was on back order. They'll be pouring the concrete border, and then once they get the netting installed, then the poured in place and wood engineered fiber will go down as well.
Is there like a curb that goes around it?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're looking forward to that. Again, they should be 90% complete with installation by the end of this week.
Sorry, Chad, does that mean the ground is gonna be installed by the end of the month?
Yes.
So it'll
Yeah,
be
the
ready to
surfacing,
use in
yes.
December?
Yep. Right as if we get a few warm days in December,
Yeah,
even
great.
some cold ones, they'll still be able to come down and enjoy it. Any questions on the playground project?
Excited for it.
Were they able to use all the equipment
Yes.
There, everything went in as planned?
Yep. Everything will go as planned.
All right, the fountain.
Chiller Pool and Fountain, I was able to talk with our contractor for that, and they recommended, we had some discussions about seeing if they could do the work this fall, and they preferred that we do the work early spring, just because they feel more comfortable with warmer weather coming rather than cooler weather in the fall. You don't know how the weather change will impact them as much as in the spring. You'll gain warmer weather. So they're confident they don't have any concerns that it would be something that's going to take far longer than us being able to open the pool at the normal time. So it will eliminate any issues we've been having with the plumbing at that point.
So I guess that raises the question, is there a warranty if they're concerned about the cold weather?
No, I think it was more so of having it torn apart and then when would they be able to finish up and put things back
Okay.
together. But we'll get some more information before we get to that date and time of time and material, any kind of warranty that comes with the work once they actually get a little bit closer to that process. I will make sure we have that. We'll move on to the horseshoe pits. Paul, I don't know if that's something you want to touch on.
Well, I mean, it is an underutilized area of the park. In terms of horseshoes as something the community's engaging with, the feedback is it's essentially not being used. The idea is thus far, Craig brought, Chad brought a great point of a pavilion. So I think it's big enough for us to consider putting a pavilion there. I'm the basketball player, so in my heart, a basketball court would be nice. I don't think we have one in any of the parks. And then if we wanted to keep the spirit of the horseshoes, I think today's horseshoes are now cornhole. So 3 options, but it's a big piece of property, and we should use it for something.
Let's open it up to the group here. Those are 3 potential options. I think a pavilion is something that has been mentioned before that's been missing. Any other thoughts that people have off the top of their head? If not, this is something we can certainly give consideration to, but a pavilion, I mean, Chad, as you're going through budgeting now, is a pavilion something you could get into an annual budget as opposed to a standalone item?
I would think most likely we could, that would be feasible. And it is something I think that would be popular. The smaller shelter we have, or pavilion that we have at Patterson, is rented almost every weekend throughout the summer and fall. And I think this would be a nice way with the sail club, sports teams, any other groups that get together, even for some of the family get-togethers or park residents that are normals. They haven't had something like that down there. So again, depending on how the weather could shift in a day, to be able to have that and reserve that and know they're still okay if the weather changes that day, I think it'll be utilized. That corner space there will have a lot of utilization throughout the summer season. And Tom, I might be safe to say that the Grosse Point Sail Club might utilize that as well after some nights.
Absolutely. After Tuesday night races, be a great spot to hang out.
Where do they hang out now?
Marge's Bar.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have 2 patio parties after the first race and after the last race, and that's on the patio at the Tompkins Center.
Even for probably most likely for the Marina Mixers that they started this summer.
Right.
Again, that might be a nice
That'd be a
spot for them to meet.
Place too.
But I see a lot of potential, even the D team, swim team, their end of the season party, some things like that after meets, Little League, soccer, teams could come together. And that's where you could have some birthday parties and really take advantage of that space.
Any other ideas that people have for that space, just off the top of your head? Perhaps this is something that the Windmill Point Committee in particular, but everyone can give some thought to. But I know since Chad's going to be going through the budgeting process in the immediate future here, perhaps it makes sense for him to conditionally start getting some pricing to see if the pavilion is something that we could get into a budget so that it would be usable this upcoming summer. And I'd hate to kick this to a spring meeting and then not be able to get it done. So subject obviously to coming back to this group, but as he's going through the budgeting process, and anyone opposed to having Chad try to work on the pavilion idea as something to start getting numbers on, we can go from there.
Well, I would only oppose it because we need some specs. Need some kind of scope of, what is this building? I mean, it's permanent, right? What's the size? What's the height? What's the, there's a lot of issues.
That's what Chad would have to do, right? Because that's, right now, we know there's a space. We know it's an underutilized space and it feels big when it's empty and no
How
one's
big
putting
is that
horseshoes.
space?
I don't know the exact measurements, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, but no, I think that's exactly what we need Chad to do is look into it
I see.
and make
So
sure.
that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, make sure it's usable, and if there is, get a rough idea for numbers, because if we can get in a budget proposal, a general number that would comply with it, we can always decide not to do it, but if we say that was a brilliant idea in February and we're not in the budget, then we'll kick back a year.
Yeah.
So I think giving Chad the the mission from this group to go explore that. And if there's a reasonable proposal, start contemplating it for budgeting. But then obviously we want to hear back from him before anything's done here. And it may be that we all have better ideas for the spot, for the space after we hear what it's going to cost. I'm sure though the budget for a pavilion would cover a couple of cornhole boards and big bags. So,
Should be thrown in. If you rent the pavilion, you guys should put out the cornhole for whoever rents it. That's an activity for them to
that
do.
may well, yeah. that may well work.
There's some outdoor cornhole.
Yeah.
Systems
Sure,
or.
and that's, that you can just leave out, you don't have to worry about bringing in and taking out.
Yep.
But I've got, so a pavilion's gonna take concrete, and I assume we have concrete that needs to be replaced in that park. We've got some slabs that are pretty beat up. But, looking at where the playground is and where we are sitting with the pool, I'd really like to see some sort of entrance from the pool into the playscape area for the summer, instead of having to walk all the way around, especially if the kiddie pool's closed. I mean, it would be nice.
Looking at a double entrance into the children's pool.
Yeah, and if we're already looking at concrete, what's a few more slabs of concrete?
So just to make sure I'm visualizing what you're thinking, James, you're talking about an entrance to the playground from the pool deck or from,
From the pool deck.
okay.
So in the summer, we would have access to get to the playground from the pool deck.
So, and Chad, as you think about that, and I know access to the pool deck and the lifeguards controlling that present other challenges. Is there some alternative to accommodate James's idea? The playground is a challenge to get to. So is there, if it's not from the pool deck proper, is there some other solution there as we get to the downspouts, et cetera, coming around the other side? I don't know what the answer is, but as you look at that, I think James' point is well taken. If we're having concrete work done, that affects the price by wrapping into other things. But my initial reaction is the pool deck's a hard one to mess with entrance wise, but maybe you guys can give some thought to that and talk it over.
Yeah, let me talk with Eagle and a few others about what that would be on our responsibility to having multiple entrances in that way. It's possible. I do believe the area that would make the most sense coming off of the playground would be the engineered fiber, where we would put the gate on the playground side. I don't know if that's where Port in Place will be, as they tore up right around the border of that concrete. So I'm not sure if I'd want to run from that mulch right into the entryway in there. It's probably not any worse than sand or anything else that makes it in there through their sandals and everything else.
Like the doggy gates to get in and out.
Yes. So, which that makes me think too, and I'll make note of that to definitely look to see what we can do by adding that in there, a second entrance there. But I also thought with having that new playground and the pavilion there, I think that would gain even more popularity for birthday party routes and things like that, because they would have the playground right there by the pavilion, so cake and ice cream, run over, play on the playground, and you've got a bar set there. What my goal would be, and if you guys see otherwise, would probably be to reach out to at least 3 or 4 contractors and probably get 3 options from each one of them. Maybe basically a small, medium, and large pavilion, anywhere from probably the minimum size to something that would hold about 25 individuals, maybe to something along the lines of 60. And then see what those sizes, the concrete and the pricing, and come back with those three options from 3 different contractors and see. Most likely, I would think it would be nice to have some type of an outlet there, just for lighting or something else.
Running water.
And go there. There is running water might not be a bad idea. I know there's a drinking fountain that's very close to that area, so they should be okay there. There's some spigots off the concession stand as well. I don't want them to get too excited about filling up water balloons and things like that right there and then. That's the mess you have over at the pavilion. But that would be my goal, is to see something along the lines of 20 to 25 up to 60 or so individuals.
If you're going to build a pavilion that holds 60, that's going to be an issue in terms of how many groups would run it. You might consider putting a divider in.
Not a bad idea.
And you could run.
Not sure that I've seen something like that, Mike's outdoor pavilion, that it would have a dividing wall like
you would in a sort of space.
Orient or whatever you
We
could.
might even be able to just look at the idea of either a divider or building two that are a bit smaller. That way they could be in there and use pavilion A, pavilion B.
Sure.
And that's
Next to each, close to each other.
With cornhole between them.
Yes, exactly.
This is a pretty elastic space, so I think Chad and Sedman have some work to do ahead of them in terms of seeing how big the space really is.
That would be my goal, and maybe that's where we'll go with the two is a and a B. But at least 2 to 3 options from each contractor with similar sizing, so we can see exactly material and pricing and go from there.
Chad, is that corner okay drainage wise, et cetera? That's not one of our big problem areas.
Is there any specific maintenance being done because it's horseshoe pits? Is there anything, it's just kind of sitting there?
Yeah, for the most part, it gets cleaned up here and there.
Yeah.
When they can get to it again, that's been part of the challenge of how often they get there. They clean it up. We had 1 or 2 rentals this summer. And even the guys had recommended or informed us that there was no problem. They'd clean up that area for their tournament. I went, made sure the guys went out and cleaned the area before they came.
So that's an area that currently is being rented to be used.
They just pulled a picnic permit so that they could get the non-residents in, but it was going to be about a half or 2/3 of residents along with some of their friends coming in. It's just a once a year thing that they do for a tournament. So it's not to say that we still couldn't have Troop 86 or the Eagle Scouts or something, even put something in back over at Patterson or another area where we have some more wide open green space that we could put them back in, or 1 or 2.
Yeah. Because Royce had something that kind of caught my ear, that we're talking about a permanent change and we think it's underutilized, but you know, is it being used more than we think, or is it being rented so you know exactly how it's being used?
There's not specific rentals for it.
Okay.
I can touch base with the gate staff as well.
Mhm.
They'll know better than most how often the activity is back there. And I would say that it's a underutilized area.
Okay, because I would agree that it's a prominent space, so putting something that is more exciting and more likely to be used like a pavilion is probably a good idea, particularly if we can put horseshoe pits somewhere else.
Yep.
If there's demand.
I would
Because
think,
it's easy to
there'd be
put
a
them in
rental.
basically, right?
Yeah.
And maintain them.
I would agree. Yep. I still think we should put them in either another area in that park or over at Patterson just to add
Sure.
to activities there.
Does the foundation have a project that they're currently working, or is that still, are they still kind of tied up with the SCOP Center, or?
I didn't get a chance to ask Bob about that. I meant to, and we didn't get a chance to touch on that. I don't know. I know they had a meeting last night. So they had a chance to look at the progress of the construction right now at Windmill, but I don't know if they've decided on a project for next year yet, or if those have even been brought to them yet. I was hopeful, I could give them projects for the next 7 to 8 years, but I figured I might take a year off and come back and ask them again, but.
All right, so Chad, then perhaps part of your coming back just to the next meeting would also include an alternative location or two for horseshoe pits.
Is this a facilities thing? Are we talking like buildings, and would that fall under that subcommittee? Or is this just a Chad thing?
At this point, just a Chad thing is probably how I would describe it. What I'm envisioning here is there needs to be the legwork of, let's get the measurements, let's see what can fit, and what are the options, and is this a $5,000 or $50,000 project? Is this something that's realistic this year or not? And then when Chad comes back to us, part of what this group will have to decide is a concrete pad pavilion something that we want to add to our maintenance roster? Is the use worth it? Is the space better used for something else? But at the moment, I think it's an idea that we're hearing some excitement about having a pavilion there. So I view this more as information gathering, and then coming back here and we can make a recommendation. But especially if the pavilion at Patterson's being used as much as it seems to be, then I'd certainly like to know a little bit more about it. And then if the horseshoe pits are as easy to move as I think they are, that gives us some flexibility.
Yeah.
But then you're right, this would be another structure.
Yeah, it's structured. Yeah, it's permanent. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of structures, how about light poles on tennis courts?
Yeah, that was another one, that the windmill committee had mentioned. The tennis pole lights, have seen better days. They're probably a bit past their lifespan. We did look at, a couple of quotes. I'd say it was right around 2019. So I'm gonna go back and get some more now. Part of the problem with them is not all of the lights are working. There's fixture issues, the wiring and things like that is aged. I know a few years ago when our electrician and park maintenance supervisor tried to actually work on one of them, there was some smoke and things like that came from the wiring. The way the pole system opens up, it almost kind of swings into a T. One side kicks out and the other side comes down. And I think with the aging of that wiring that runs through them, really the poles themselves, to go and spend the money to bring in equipment to go high enough to paint them, clean them up, things like that. I'm not sure we want to spend that money if we decide that we either are going to remove and replace them, and we would most likely bring them off the tennis courts and reinstall them just outside the fenced in area. My guess is we probably wouldn't need as many sets of lights either with LEDs. They are a bit of an energy hog right now with what's currently out there compared to newer state of the art. But I think another thing we would have to look at is there's not really a set policy on when we use the lights or activate the lights for tennis usage. So we might want to look at it as kind of an unwritten rule that between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we would turn them on until 10 p.m. It's kind of the peak time of the year for the sun to be out anyways. So I don't know how much they got really utilized going that route, but I think that might be something that we could look at and discuss as a commission. If we decide what we want to do with the lighting, what we come up with for days and hours of being able to utilize the tennis court lights.
Have you seen a decline in tennis? Because I mean, tennis is declining.
It's not from, I would say, it's hard for me to say from when I've been here, but I would say 10, 15 years ago, they would reserve them at the inside gatehouse and you would have people reserving those courts all the time. Now, not as much. There's still people that will call and try to sometimes or again pull a picnic permit to bring a group in there. So that's one thing we could look at is maybe to the activity that we see next season or so and what kind of activity we have now. Do I think the activity could ramp up a little bit if they could come early morning and stay later in the evening with lights? Yeah, I would think so. I think it's the same with our fitness center. If we can open up earlier and stay open later, we're going to catch those crowds that can play before and after work and things like that. Or again, when we touch on this part of the year when it's dark by 5:30, to still be able to play until 8. That's, I think, was something we could discuss and decide we can keep the tennis lights on. They can activate them until 8 o'clock at night. And then at that point, we turn them off for the sake of the neighbors and the house next door and things like that, and allow them a decent time to still put their children down the bed or something like that.
Bring up random neighbors.
Yep.
That
I mean,
helps
if
us
you
all.
move them outside of the gate, could you put lights on both sides and we light up our awesome new playground, our pavilion, and have an all-night party?
It is very possible. That's something that we could consider and look at. And again, we may not necessarily need them on both sides. Maybe it's on the side of the house, but not just on the other side of the court pointing back towards the house, or the way they angle them now. It might be different. So again,
Yeah, you want to protect that house.
yeah,
You don't want
yeah, especially as I think just sold. So
Yeah.
we don't need issues with the new neighbors. All right, but I think it would be nice if we as a commission could have a discussion and start to decide what we want to do, because that I think could be a big part of, do we eliminate lights altogether and use natural daylight, or we install new lighting system so that we can play earlier in the morning and later in the season or year round, depending on what the weather's like. I know the last couple of years we haven't pulled the nets out, especially over at Patterson with the pickleball courts. If there's a dry enough day, and it doesn't matter if it's December or January, they're gonna be out there playing. So it's
A little different though, because the ball is different, the paddle's different.
Yes.
Tennis,
Yeah.
that ball in the cold, it doesn't react. the same.
Yeah.
Can we benefit at all from the project the city is undergoing with DTE on streetlights? Is that a similar kind of apparatus?
I can touch base with a representative from DTE. I'm not sure if that's a type of project that they would do, or if they would potentially work on what we currently have there to change it out. With having the conversation with our city electrician, he felt that most likely to be on the safe side and to really have longer lifespan out of them, you probably need to replace everything at this point, just with the quality of the poles themselves right now, the age of the wiring, things like that, the amount of energy that it uses, would most likely be beneficial to either completely remove them or remove them and install something newer. Yeah. And most of the time I've seen that it's companies that specialize in that, just field lighting and things like that. But let me reach out to him. I don't know if we want to save that for another meeting, Mike.
Yeah, so it would seem to me, let's perhaps get a little more information about the lights themselves.
But I do think that if we are considering replacing them or removing them as part of that discussion on replacement, that this body should work on some sort of reasonable guidelines because it's going to impact use of other things, et cetera, and being good neighbors. So I don't know that it makes sense to get into tonight, but especially as you come back with more information, let's make sure we reserve time for that in the future meeting.
And I think that might be something nice we could potentially look at for maybe the 25, 26 budget or something along those lines. We could maybe use a summer season to kind of gauge how much activity we've had there. We can have 3 or 4 contractors come in, give us pricing on new lighting, set those potential days and hours that we might utilize it, and then just see if the total cost, also looking at the overall city budget. If things are going to be tight for the next couple of years, depending on overall funds for the city, tennis court lights might not be one of those items that we can look at. It might be a 2 to 3 year road before we're even able to look at something like that.
But just to be clear, we can still maintain, patch, fix, et cetera, and use what we have right now. We're not at the point where they're non-functional for the upcoming season.
Right.
Right. Okay.
They're not perfect. Not all of them are working, but there's enough light out there that if somebody wants to play in the evening, they can do it.
Got it. All right. Pool starting blocks. Who knew they were this expensive?
Touch on another project. This is one. Again, they've outlived their lifespan. We did have them probably 4 or 5 years ago resurfaced, and the surfacing on them is great. It's really just the structure itself and the sleeves no longer hold the starting block itself tight. So we've tried to come up with a few different ways, cement them in to hold them in there permanently, put some other type of base type structures to keep them from moving. One way it stops it, the other way side to side, it still continues to move. And part of it depends on the size of the swimmer that's using it. You go from 6, 7-year-olds up to 17-year-olds. So all different heights and sizes. It's an expensive project, but it's also one of those things where you can just move it back to a flat surface and re-bracket it to the ground. The angles with the starting blocks, the gutter system that we have in the pool are all factors to make sure that you have safe entry into the pool from the starting block. Our swim team is probably our biggest program. We have over 200 swimmers. The tough thing, even talking with our pool vendor, is it's kind of a tough price to swallow when you could potentially only use it 3 to 6, 7 times a year for your meets. But you're talking about over 200 kids, you're talking about 5 other cities that are involved in the league. And you use those twice a day, every day for 2.5 months or so of the summer. So it's expensive. It may be one of those things that we can look at a city match along with maybe the foundation could help out with us, and maybe Mutants as a whole or some other swim organizations could work with us and 2 or 3 partnerships in order to raise the funds to help with it. I try not to put names all over the park, but again, if enough family, our family can help out, there could be a small plaque on a starting block to help with some of that. If you could get 6, 7 families or 2 or 3 organizations to help out. I know part of the challenge is Grosse Pointe South. Again, a lot of their boosters and parents are raising funds, I think, for them as they needed a new scoreboard and some other things. So I'm not sure how much in the swim community we could tap into them. Also with pools at some of the schools and things like that. But it's possible, and it's one of those things we need to seriously consider. We might be able to get away one more year of trying to make them a bit makeshift to just get through, but we are hosting prelims and swim finals again for Grosse Pointe Farms. So if weather cooperates and we have power, it will be at Windmill Point Park. But it's one of those things.
Cost, Chad?
It's a good possibility of anywhere from 40 to 60,000 to replace them. You're looking at probably 3 to 5,000 for each starting block itself, and then you're talking about the concrete work and labor, things like that. So it's not a cheap project, but something we need to give some serious consideration to, especially for a program that size.
Is that budgeted for? I mean, do we expect this kind of maintenance to be coming up, or is this sort of a capital expenditure one-time type of need?
It would probably be like a one-time, because the new ones would probably go, and I'll have to look at what type of warranty comes with them. But my guess is they should last somewhere in the 15 to 20 years. So it wouldn't be something we have to address again for quite some time.
That's good.
Yeah, it's not a 3 to 5 year, project, and then you've got to do it again. Hopefully it's one of those things you get 20 years out of them. Part of the challenge though could be because they are out in the elements, and then when they're in the off season with the cold and hot and changes like that, with that metal, the concrete around it, it ages. So go ahead.
So are you locked into one type of starting block system? Are there other
No.
alternatives that you wouldn't necessarily be constrained to such failures as we're experiencing now?
I think given the age, they'll all eventually be that way. I'm not exactly sure how old those are, but I would say they're probably pushing 30 years, if not. So they've been there for quite a while. I'll see if I can get an exact date of when they were installed. But
Did the city buy the ones we have?
yes,
Okay.
so we might be able to look through the archives and see.
I
what
was
they were actually
curious, yeah.
purchased. Yep. And I'll look through a few more files to see if I can find something on them.
Have any of the other cities recently replaced theirs? I mean, I know St. Clair Shores doesn't have starting blocks, and I think that we definitely do not want that option.
I would say, I don't think we want to have
The right
any of the
thing to do.
farms. I don't believe they have any either, so,
Who's that?
Grosse Pointe Farms,
Farms doesn't have starting blocks?
I don't
Their
believe they.
pools has that shape to it, so that's why we're hosting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
so-
set up the way in Olympic
Right.
pools.
Yep. I think the city in the woods aren't old, but it's been a little while since they've replaced theirs. I even reached out to a few different groups that sell used ones and things like that. But again, the problem you get with that is you might get a good deal on it, but the work that's going to take on that and the guarantee of having sleeves or things like that that will fit, and you might just run into the same boat. And the certain style of the starting block, again, could be the issue with our gutter system and the angle of that starting block.
Maybe the farm should kick in if they're using the park.
They're working on, I believe, a new pool project or renovation, so they might have other funds tied up with that, but I'll see what they can do to help us out.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
but I think it is something we've got to address. I think that's the thing we've got to look at is, if it's going to be 15 to 20 years that these will last, 40 to 50,000, again, with some assistance, might be feasible. Again, I don't know what the whole overall city funds.
Yeah. Right, that's fine.
Yeah, and so if we have the ability to get another year out of the current ones with the effort that your team puts in, then perhaps we can start evaluating options between our dollars, if the mutants are able to help, if the foundation's able to help, what those options are. But this wouldn't be a summer of 24 replacement. This would be a summer of 25 replacement.
Most likely. I'm not sure there's a way we could pull it off this year. If we got lucky, we could. I think it would be welcomed by all of our swim program. But I would want to make sure that the starting blocks for this season, for one last season, knowing that this would be the last time we use them, we're safe enough for all swimmers to utilize them, that I think we might be able to get lucky for one more season. Yeah, very much so.
So Jen, I mean, if I'm hearing you right, you're not 100% sure these would be safe as is for next summer.
There are a couple that really are the main issues of safety. I think, can we make it work for one more summer? It's possible. It again depends on how sturdy you want them to be to get by with it and the amount of use that they're going to take on.
Can we replace some and do 1 year and another second year and so on, so it doesn't?
That might be a possibility.
Let the farms use the bad ones and just a thought.
We draw early on. See if that's a potential. Yeah, project, or if it's is up and do the work. That might be an easier way for us to do it. Allocate funds for the next 2 or 3 years and do 2 starting blocks at a time, if we can do that. Knock out like the worst ones first. I'll make that call tomorrow morning. Okay. If we don't have anything else regarding Windmill Point Park, we'll move on to buildings and facilities. I don't know if you want to just touch base on our restrooms at Patterson.
I can touch on it. I did the tour. I only did the men's room, and this is my initiation, and I believe it was follow-up. Did that occur with Stacy?
Yeah, we only visited some items at Windmill. We haven't scheduled Patterson yet.
All right, so I went through it and I sent the information to the subcommittee and I sent it to Chad. Yeah, they're functional. Are they aesthetically pleasing? No. But they work, all the toilets work, and there's toilet paper there, and they're maintained. Urinals is the urinal. Water runs hot and cold, the door open and closed. Place is relatively clean. There's some very small broken pieces of tile here and there, but overall, it's functional. Could it be better? Yes, but I don't think it needs to be replaced next year. If you're looking at upgrading, then it wouldn't be hard to do. It sets a minimum barrier, just minimum. I didn't go to the women's, I don't know the condition of it, but I'm gonna just assume for this discussion, it's similar. And you go from there.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of think we're looking at, replacing the trough style urinal that's in there with an actual couple of newer state urinals. Maybe some painting, changing out some lighting, things like that. Some of the outside, the siding, painting the pillars, things that are touch-up work in there would probably work better for the overall
It has a
aesthetics.
gas station quality to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Certain vibe.
It could use an upgrade for sure.
Yeah.
But again, the floor tiles and things like that, the wall tile isn't in poor shape. It just lacks a little bit of color and excitement probably.
Yeah.
Are we talking about Patterson?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's really all on that. I just wanted to touch base and look, I know it's something we had talked about. Functionality gets the job done, but it could use a facelift.
It is, it seems to be maintained, and they do get paper products in there.
Yeah.
So, and that hand blower works. So, yeah, it was, the guys are taking care of it.
Yeah.
Keeping it clean.
And that's really the biggest thing is in the summer. That's when you'll see
Yeah.
things running out just because of the amount of usage.
Oh,
of the
sure.
city, so.
It feels kind of, to me, like we should carefully consider the best use of the limited funds that we have. And, you know, when gas station quality is one thing, needing to paint it is another thing, you know.
Right.
But spending significant money to change out working urinals and stuff like that, when we only have so many dollars in the middle of the table here to spend, right? We should probably evaluate how, the priority.
Yeah, that's all. Absolutely. And I don't think that goes to a top priority type of issue. I think it was more so to make sure that that committee took a look at it.
Yeah, just doing our job.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. I haven't been in there in 10 years, so.
Probably else to say.
But it works.
Did you visit gas station bathrooms to compare?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I want the results of that survey.
Roy's regretting taking that committee slot.
The next item is the Lab and Activity Center downspouts. This was something that the window committee had actually noticed as well. But at the top of the roof, there's actually just round openings that all the rainwater that collects from up there comes out the side and basically just lands on the ground. Part of the problem with that is the landscaping around that area. Erosion is becoming a problem. Our thoughts are to remove the landscaping there. I've met with Tom Jenny, our DPW director. And what we think we can do is probably install PVC piping onto those openings, something that matches the building. Run that either over to a couple of the gutter systems that are over on an offshoot of it, which is a storage closet area, or straight down to the ground, take that underground and then have it come back up on the other side of the fencing there underneath the sidewalk. And I'm going to get some quotes with him. He's going to see if they can do some of the work. They can definitely do the removal of the landscaping and put some arborvitae and bushes back in that area. But it would eliminate the retaining wall and potentially give us some more campsite space for Camp Windy Mill. So, but we're going to most likely need a contractor to come in and do the work. That it's not that he wouldn't want his team to be able to take that on and that they wouldn't be able to do the work, but he doesn't see in the near future them having the manpower to be able to do the work.
You talking about taking a wall down?
Not just retaining wall, but actually doing the PVC piping from the downspouts, all of that, putting that in place, running it underground, underneath the sidewalk, bringing it back up. He's just tight on manpower right now.
What would happen when it comes back up? Would it go to the curb and drain into the street, or what are you envisioning on the other
I
side?
believe so. It was, I forget the exact word that he used, but yes, basically it would come back up in that grass area and then disperse from that grass area.
Have a French drain?
Yeah, similar to it, yeah. Like a drain tile system out that way. So, again, I'm gonna have him meet with me and myself and 2 to 3 contractors to see what we can get. I've already sent an email out to a company that did the work on the roof to see if that's something that they specialize in, well, with it being a flat roof, to see if we can.
It's a big building. Sometimes there's a lot of water. I'd hate to
Yes.
see a new swampy area instead of the erosion we have now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it might even be an option that we can put something natural there that would kind of collect some of that rainwater, but not erode away. I haven't ruled that out as an option of maybe I don't want to say a natural bed, but something that could catch the water there and let it slowly go into the ground. I just know if we completely eliminate it, the foundation will become an issue because it will just land directly on the grass. I mean, you can already see from the landscaping at the few feet of height that is it's eroding away. So I don't want that to start to become an issue on the foundation itself.
Didn't the city do like a rain barrel here in City Hall? Weren't they modifying that front area and
They may have at one time, I feel like.
I wonder if there's any kind of
We might be able to
capture the
explore that
water
option.
and
Yeah,
use it.
yeah. That's a possibility. Let me put that down. But I do know it's something we need to look at just because especially with the popularity that's going to come from that playground, that I don't want that retaining wall to be an issue. I'd like to see that removed.
Kids will be walking on it more and all of it.
Yep. Yep. And it's already starting to get a bit of an angle to it that I would like to see that removed before we hit the summer if possible.
Some grown-ups.
So we'll look at maybe 2 or 3 options for that as well, but I wanted to make sure I brought that up. The other thing with that is too, is it's that way throughout the entire building. So there's another area, I believe it's right at the family locker room door on the pool deck. That's where it drops. So if there's still a bit of standing water up there, you get a slow trickle just dropping onto everyone's head that walks in and out of there. Might be the women's restroom as well. So I'd like to see if we can take that and defer it to some other area as well.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But so those are on the list, but I want to make sure we looked at all those options to see what we can do to take that water and displace it somewhere else that's not through a main traffic area.
All right, the gazebo.
That's another item we had looked at. We know, again, we'll look at, once I get numbers and information on it, we can kind of prioritize it on a high priority or low priority. But I've already had one contractor come out and take a look at it. They're going to work up some numbers for us, and I'm going to have at least 2 or 3 more follow with that. But they're thinking more than likely, again, with the weather that we face throughout the year here, probably eliminating the Poetic tile, redoing some concrete work, and then putting another type of surface on it, kind of like we did on the sun deck. Something on there that has a bit of a grip to it. You can still make it a bit of a decorative look to it, but removing the tile from it as many pieces that are missing. So clean it up and have a nice look to it.
You know, I'd be interested if there was a contractor and a way to preserve any of the tile that's left, you know, or incorporate into something else. It's a unique feature. So as you're looking at it, and I have no idea if it is cost effective
Just to
or not.
confirm.
But if there's some way to keep that, I'd certainly be interested in hearing what that is, because it is eye catching.
I know they would for sure keep at the bottom of the columns, the tile that's there. They would clean that up and replace any of that or put it back in there and keep that. I can also talk with them to see if we could save it in some areas if it made sense, again, for the aesthetics. Because without it being a big issue, if something were to come off, it wouldn't be an expensive repair to replace those, as a few fell out in that 15 to 20. But I can find out there. I think the initial thoughts were to remove all of it except for the bottom of the columns and just put some kind of another surface on top of the concrete.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the easiest, but it's a Detroit thing. It's an aesthetic thing, and that I know that we have explored the limits of the largesse of the foundation. However, preserving something like the Pewabic tile might be something that the foundation would have particular interest in as well. So just before we go too far down any road, I for one would like to hear about the options. Sure.
If it's worth preserving.
If it's worth preserving, yeah.
And what costs. Now, that was a Launch Tech University project. Their students put that together. That's what I
It's
understand.
interesting, like it's part of an art program.
Well, that's some kind of senior project or something that they had to do. That's my knowledge of it. There's probably others who have more knowledge. Mike, do you remember discussion about it? We've discussed it over the years, several times, and it was a Launch Tech project, put that together.
I do know that the first contractor I looked at said they would save the tile. So when they removed it, they would save that for us if we wanted to utilize it somewhere else. They wouldn't just break all of it apart. They would take it as the best that they could remove it. for
Well,
us.
we could always use it to give pizzazz to the bathrooms, but
Can they be used as starting blocks?
Now we're getting somewhere. Absolutely. So again, as those come in, a lot of this stuff is going to be getting the information, getting the pricing, bringing it back to this group and discussing, where it falls in the level of priority and the cost of these projects. But with that being said, we don't have anything else with buildings and facilities. We can move on to the marina, and I'll let Tom touch on that.
We've been very active in everything that we're doing with the marina as far as trying to keep our costs down as much as we can. The first thing that we're looking at is the PEX lines that we talked about at our last meeting that have some problems with algae growing in them. The white lines, we're trying to figure out, I had 3 different contractors come in and I met with all of them. I toured the dock with all of them. And the last guy that was there is from Shelby Mechanical, and he said, well, he's never seen PEX lines grow algae before. He thinks it might be a function of us getting air in them when we blow them out in the fall. Then they've got air in them, there's moisture in them. And then between that and the sun, even in the wintertime, if it's not below freezing, it's going to grow algae. So originally with the 3 contractors that we talked to, I got bids from all 3 of them as far as replacing the PEX lines. So we started to remove trip hazards primarily. We've got several areas on the docks where they go over the top of the T-dock. That's a trip hazard. I told all 3 of them, I said, that has to be removed. The lines all have to be run underneath and secured to the sides of the docks so that they're not a trip hazard in any way, shape, or form. They all have come back with proposals. We've also discussed with our water department the fact that we can buy all the materials ourselves. That we can save somewhere around 26% because the plumbers all mark it up 20%. And that's part of their profit. And then plus we're tax exempt, that's another 6%. So we can save some money by just being creative. Also, after the last contractor was there, Chad and I started talking about, well, what if we use an algicide in the spring? And I don't know if it takes 5 gallons or 55 gallons. That you pump an algicide into the PEX lines, the existing PEX lines that we have now, and let it set for whatever the period of time is, 24 hours or 72 hours, I don't know. And then blow that algicide out. You're not going to use a chemical in there that's going to hurt the environment. We're not going to use bleach or antifreeze, but an algicide, which is already sprayed on all of our weeds twice a year in the harbor. So that's something that we're looking at, maybe saving some more money if we did that and not replace the lines and simply secured the lines and removed the trip hazards. So we're trying really, really hard to keep how much money we're spending down as much as we can. So that's the PEX lines. So I apologize. The approval of a long-term concept B or concept plan, and that's C, which we've been working with Avonmarsh. And what we've come to the decision between the Harbor Subcommittee, and Chad and myself and Avonmarsh is like, we're going to basically take out Pier 1. The docks on Pier 1 most of them are 8.6 inches wide. We have sold every single one. Okay. So it's not an issue of not selling and filling up the marina, which we filled up the marina. Those wells are always the issue. Those wells are getting to the point where they need a lot of maintenance. So what we're proposing is, if you look at the little sheet that you got there, I'm not sure if we're only going from 62 wells to 60, because the last time we talked, which was on our Zoom call on Monday, we were talking about eliminating 12 wells altogether, going from 272 or 270 functional wells we have to 258. That's 12 wells.
We're going to confirm with Avonmarsh tomorrow that I have confirmation in an email that it says 60 for Pier 1, but we believe it's most likely going to be 50. So we'll get that. Not that I think we need to base any judgment off of that 50. We know it's going to be 250 and we're going to lose the 12 wells. But what I wanted you guys to see was the current layout of Pier 1 and what their proposal is just by seeing the distance, the measurements of the lengths of the wells and the widths of the wells, because as Tom had mentioned, he can sell them all, but those are the most difficult ones and take the most amount of time, where with some small changes by making them closer to 9 feet, 10 feet for some of them with those lengths, we won't have an issue. And typically, by the number of times, the first year doing it, but really 10 plus is kind of the average of boats that turn over on the year anyway. So I don't think we're going to run into a big issue with having to eliminate that few wells. I don't know if you would agree yet, Tom, on that, but I think those who come in for the one boating season and say, this isn't, we're not cut out for this, race on the boat, I don't think we'll run into a big issue of seniority, on who we're going to keep and who we would have to eliminate.
I mean, already, I don't have everybody back yet, and I gave them an extra couple of weeks without a penalty to get me not only their deposit, but I'm requiring a deposit, their current registration, and their current insurance. All those things, and I've been writing little notes on everybody as I'm sending them back their deposit receipt that come March, when the final payment's due, if I don't have those things, they're not guaranteed a well. I need these things in advance, that I know that I'm in compliance, that everybody is insured, and it is their boat.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're trying to do everything the right way, which we are. But with, back to the proposal on Pier 1, it's basically shortening the wells from 29 feet long, increasing the amount of through fare between 2 and 1 by a few feet. Most of the wells will be either 28 feet long or 26 feet long. The smaller boats can go, they're 24-foot boats, 20-foot boats, 18, 17-foot boats. They can all go in a 26-foot well. Optimally, I'd like to see wells that give boaters 6 inches minimum on each side. So it's the puzzle game going right now that we're trying to, I'll start fitting people into wells where they belong. Also with the proposal that we've been looking at that was approved by the Marina Subcommittee is resurfacing all the docks, making them all level, bringing them all up. All new electrical, all new water in pods. The electrical needs to be a minimum of 2 feet above our high water level, 2019, which was the highest water we've ever seen. In 2019 and 20. So all that stuff addressed with Abbott Marsh on Monday with our Zoom call. Nick was on the call. Tom Caulfield was on the call. The engineer, the top designer and engineer from Abbott Marsh were on the call, and myself and Chad were on the call. So it was a very productive call. I think we're ready to move forward and try to get stuff moving by a year from now. It looks like we're going to try to do 2 phases, and they'll probably be 7 to 9 months, 7 months approximately, 2 different seasons, so we're not disrupting the harbor, so that we're not closing down for half a season. We might be opening a couple weeks later, and we might be closing weeks earlier. Okay, to give them an extra month's worth of time to do construction. So these are all things and deposits, we're doing very, very well.
Tom, let me back you up to the proposal here. So let's start with this. So we have the proposal 3.
Yes.
And then I'm a little unclear. We know we're losing 12 wells. We're not sure where we're losing them from, or we might only be.
We're losing them on Pier 1 only.
Only on Pier 1.
But what the email was sent to me by them was saying that it would be for 60 wells.
And you think it's actually 50?
I believe it's probably 50. I know that what they're using is where if you look on our current one, the beginning where there aren't any numbers there, that's where we currently store the work barge. What they're saying is that new space now there will allow for 2 wells. So I think there's there's some elimination there, but again, if whether or not we put the barge in, I don't think it will affect us approving this. What we're looking at for this group tonight to approve is this concept, the design concept itself. We'll get you the number on. We know it's 258 and it's only going to change on Pier 1. You need to understand that Pier 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to stay exactly the same as they are. What's going to change is a substructure on top of the current infrastructure, strengthening the current infrastructure, putting in new pedestal power, electrical, water, things like that. You're not approving what materials, what items go on there. What you're approving is this overall design layout right here.
And so for the next thing that they're doing is a diver survey. So we'll have divers in the park probably in the next week, checking out everything underneath Pier 1 right now, because there's a lot of old pilings down there, to make sure that we're not going to be interfering when we're putting in the new system, that none of those big cedar pilings need to come out. They're also going to be inspecting the entranceway. So Tom, let me pause you though. I want to get, because this group recommendation for what proceeds to council. So the execution, there's a great deal to focus on, but let me see if I can recap this, and then Tom and Chad tell me where I'm wrong. The proposal number 3, and you have the Avonmarsh sheet that Chad printed out, the current one, is keeping the physical layout of piers 2 through 5 the same. It is restructuring the layout of the wells on Pier 1. And it is essentially calling for a rehabbing and refinishing of that structure as opposed to redesign or rebuild of the marina. Is that a fair characterization, Chad?
Absolutely.
Okay. The net result will be 12 fewer wells, all on Pier 1. The changes Tom laid out, greater space between Pier 1 and Pier 2 by shortening the finger piers on Pier 1. And the electrical upgrades, water upgrades, surface upgrades, structural upgrades that Tom laid out. So when we call for a vote here and then we'll have discussion, this is a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission to City Council. City Council then will do their thing, and we are not talking about dollars. We're not talking about anything other than the plan. City Council and Nick will do the dollars, and then, bless you, there's a lot more steps along the way. But our question tonight is, with this plan in front of us, as modified by the comments you heard from Chad and Tom, is this something we are prepared to recommend or not recommend to City Council? So let me start by asking for a motion to recommend the Avonmarsh proposal number 3, concept plan number 3, to the City Council for next steps. Is there anyone who'd like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Sarah, support?
I'll second that.
Second, okay. Discussion or questions for Tom and Chad about Avonmarsh revised concept number 3?
I have a question.
I got Sarah's first.
Okay.
Is this, what's the timeline on this change? Like, is this supposed to last? Because previously we talked about maybe having a 2-year, 3-year, what stage is this for?
You're asking how long will the renovations last as
Yes.
opposed to how long will they take to implement?
Correct.
20 to 30
Thousands.
years.
This is the long term. Okay.
Yeah.
And current marina, I believe, was built in the 1950s.
In the 50s. Our marina, as it sits today, was built in the 50s. Right?
Yeah, I think it escaped me. Give me another minute. Go to someone else.
No worries. Something that we didn't really talk about yet, but this, with this concept 3 is also raising the inside wall to keep water out of the park, so that the inside concrete wall that separates the water from the land will also be raised.
That's part of this.
Yes.
Is that the wall between one and 2?
All the way around.
All the way around.
All the way around.
Okay.
There's concrete issues all the way around. That is being addressed in concept 3. It wasn't all the concepts, but that's something that we addressed on Monday with the Zoom meeting, what was included in it, and they broke it all down. 40 different steps, basically, 40 different
Which will also include the entrance and exit seawall.
Yeah, the entrance and exit seawalls being
Most of
addressed
us
as
know
well.
that's been an issue when we had the high water. That will be replaced.
So the scope of the need has already been defined. This meets that need.
It does.
And it keeps costs, as far as we know, to an appropriate minimum that we might be able to achieve.
Let me put a pin.
Struggling with that.
Yeah, let me put a pin in that. Cost is a whole different thing.
Right.
And I don't think numbers are associated with anything yet. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I'm just saying theoretically, you could remove everything that's there and build a perfect new marina. That would cost more.
Yes.
This costs less. And we're hoping that we can deliver on the need for money. That's a different discussion. I understand that, but you guys are all, and the Marina Subcommittee are recommending that this meets the known needs and is hopefully the least expensive way to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, we already know Piers 2 through 5. We don't have an issue having boaters in those. We can fill one. It's challenged because of the size of those wells. With some changes to that, we know anymore. And people are still coming to that marina with the current state that it's in. People are still using that marina. So what we're looking at is we don't need to change everything up with it. We don't need to go with floating docks. We don't need to do 70 to 80 wells, which financially wouldn't make any sense. Let's fix what's there. Let's strengthen it.
And get a couple decades out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and we don't have Larry or Marty, but we have Christina and Tom and Chad.
So the Marina Subcommittee is in favor of this approach number 3, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, one important thing to note, they always say perfect is the enemy of good,
Yeah,
right? I thought, when I went down this road, state-of-the-art floating, because we have these issues with just cyclical water levels.
Sure.
But you do that, you're gonna lose a ton of slips. And we have a demand in this community, we generally speaking are quite full. So
261.
that would be a bad idea. In addition, as an enterprise fund, do you want to lose that kind of volume? You have the demand, people want the slips. So it didn't make sense to go to that, let's just call it state of the art. But what we're all completely in agreement on is that we need obviously a workable marina, but also a very safe marina. And, the electrical right now, if you go down to the marina, it's low, it's just above the concrete level. So this addresses, almost all of the issues, quite frankly, except for those of us who maybe had a dream of something that's, incredibly beautiful that you might see it sometime.
It will be incredibly beautiful when it's done, keeping the same footprint. I think with the plans that we have in place, I think it'll be
traditional, it'll just be more traditional. And that also meant,
safety's number one.
and the survey did surprise me. Most of our, at least those that surveyed didn't answer, but it was a decent sampling. Did surprise me. People weren't really looking for floating docks. They weren't looking for
State of the art.
state of the art. They were looking for what they have now, safe, reliable, better.
Brought up the full maintenance.
And Christina, that addresses my other question for you guys. This proposal is consistent with the feedback you received both from the survey and from the other community engagement the Marina Subcommittee's been working on this for a good chunk of time now. And this proposal is consistent with what the community is asking for.
We do have Frank Ferries here from the community. He's a fellow boater, a fellow past commodore of the Grosse Pointe Sail Club that had something to say tonight as well.
Yeah, we'll have public comment.
After, I didn't know the process.
Yeah, we had public comment on the agenda items and he will do it at the end and we'll have it then. So,
Michael, can I ask another question?
yeah, absolutely.
Does this plan encompass any changes to Pier 1 itself, like the concrete on that, or any additional lighting or benching or things, that are not in the water?
That's what we're working on with that as well. What upgrades might need to be considered on that main pier itself.
Lighting is included. On the proposal, lighting is included. I can't speak for the fencing at this point. I don't know.
Right, the openings are in the wrong space if you change the.
You have to change fencing on the main. Fencing along the marina itself would most likely fall probably on a Parks and Rec type of project. Because it's more so to keep the patrons in the park from falling into the water more so. You could go a little bit with that. It does make it an entrance for boaters. So it keeps those individuals out that shouldn't be going on the piers. But it's more so to protect the safety of children, things like that, from walking and going into the water. I don't know if, like in Grosse Pointe Woods, you can actually walk from a big play space there, right over to that channel of those boats, and you can look at anything you want, walk right to the water. So I think that fencing would fall on Parks and Rec.
And what about fencing along the lake side? So we have the fence and then the wall. Is that still going to be a fence and then the wall? Is there going to
I
be?
believe the fencing will be included for Pier 1. For those that need to go onto their boat there, that would be factored into that project for the boaters on Pier 1.
And on the lake side, are we doing anything? Because you have that first one,
That first
50 feet or
section.
so.
I don't know if that will be replaced and necessarily on the marina itself. It might be something that's split.
Okay.
And as we get further into the project, it might be something where we look at it, if it's partially on the marina and partially on the parks departments. But I've always kind of wondered why it's been fenced in that section and not the seawall the entire way. But that's what we'll look at. Again, what you have to look at with the main pier is that's utilized by all residents with walkers, individuals that fish, runners, things like that. Everyone uses that main pier. So I don't think you could solely put that entirely on the marina itself.
Mike.
So in Christina's fantasy world, I think that one of the issues that came up was the entrance, which is now not going to be changed at all, right? In this, in proposal 3.
It would be replaced. The entrance exit seawalls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the entrance when you come in right by 5, that'll
The
be,
boat entrance or the pedestrian entrance?
Both.
Okay.
That'll be replaced.
Yes.
And they somehow.
It's going to be in the same place. That's what part of the dive survey is, to make sure. that the
Exactly the same.
Structure underneath is in good shape, but the panels have all gotten jacked up, especially on the outside one, from the ice.
So is there any way to make that safer
Yes.
for the boaters compared to what it is now? Because you yourself has raised that issue with people.
Yep.
And I don't know what the hell they're doing when they.
Yeah, well,
Trick.
And Tom, so that's part of the electrical is getting those lights fixed so they're safe, where all of that is going into the entrance. That's part of the baseline safety stuff.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Will that all be taller? So in high water moments, it's not submerged?
Yes.
That's good.
2 feet above the highest.
Okay.
Current, 2 feet above its current.
The highest.
Highest water.
Wow, that's good.
Where it was a wash
Mhm.
in 2020.
Yeah, it was underwater.
Oh, yeah, that's not good.
So you say you're able to lease out all of the slips currently. It just takes more effort.
This was the first year that we were able to do it since 2020, I believe. 2020, obviously, we all know. If you could get your hands on a boat, a bicycle, a kayak, you're utilizing it. The other strength that we're going to have with Tom in this position, though, is this is Tom's sole focus. So he will be able to put the time and effort into going through the wait list, getting the renewal. The renewal process will go quicker now because he's not juggling 5, 6, 7 different things. He's juggling multiple things within the marina itself. So going after those who haven't paid, we're not gonna wait 3 months to finally have them come in and pay. They're gonna be
But
given
To
the grace
James,
period.
to James's question, the reduction in the number of wells is to provide slightly wider slips on Pier 1 to accommodate a taste in wider boats than there was in the 50s, right?
Yes.
So, as I understand Tom explained in the prior meeting, we're jamming them in there pretty tight, and this will be more reflective of the current tastes, current desires. We are renting them out now, but if you're gonna redo it, it's like parking spot width, right? You might be able to fit in there, but you're gonna ding the doors.
I'm not gonna say that it wouldn't come absolutely that, or one boat is significantly smaller than the one next to us, so they can overlap a little bit into their area without causing an issue. But I won't go as far as to say that there will be a zero chance of a seniority issue or something like that, where we may have to eliminate boaters from the previous year to just say, unfortunately, with the loss of wells, you were the 6th on the wait list. But
So we're gonna have 2 cycles to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
So
Most likely, that's what they're looking at right now is
So can we make sure we are telling whoever the newest arrivals are in this space that there's a risk when this is done, that you might be the one on the way out, so there's no surprise? I mean, obviously, we'd love to accommodate everyone, but you said 261 people on the wait list?
Yes.
It's a pretty good wait list.
Yeah, I'm saying the wait list, and then we're removing 12 wells. So if we're filling them today, even based on maybe an older standard, what are we getting out of it? If we're filling them today? And I think all the safety stuff, absolutely, I'm totally on board, but I'm struggling with the 12 reductions in spots. If we're currently leasing them out or renting them out, and we have more resources to have them filled.
I'll let Tom follow me up on it, but what I'm gonna say is this will be the safest way to ensure boaters are able to utilize and use their wells. Because of the way we have it right now, we're putting the boats in there and then telling them, hey, you're tight, you've got 2 inches. Well, I'm okay with that, or you're gonna lean over a foot and a half or so into 133's well. 130, not a problem. I'm okay with it because my boat's so small. This, we won't have to deal with those kind of issues anymore.
Thank you.
And I would say probably, to go back to it, but Tom, as you're looking at it, I'm gonna say probably at least 75, 80 people on that current wait list are on that wait list because either a friend, a neighbor, they just moved here, tells them, you need to get on the marina wait list. Well, I've never run a boat, but you want to get on the wait list. So as Tom keeps going through that, I don't even have a boat.
It's more like half. It's at least half.
So that's part of what he's working on right now is cleaning up that way. He's already had a nice start to it, but it's a lot of people getting on there because if I don't put my name on it now and I'm not there when they call, then I'm going to add on to another 7 years. So I'm going to get on it now, and then 6, 7 years, approaches, and well, gosh, it's been 6 years. I didn't even think about buying.
James's point, though, was more reducing well is always a question, but this is in the best interest of what the boating community wants, and this is the safest way to do it.
Yeah, safety.
We'd love to have more wells and more revenue, but we got to do it within the limits. Is that fair, Tom?
It was the most practical plan that we saw, that we looked at. I mean, the first 2 plans were, again, it was eliminating 60 plus wells and 80 plus wells of the first 2 proposals I got. And for not coming to y'all, but I said no.
And what also is going to help with shortening the 2/3 or so of the wells on 1 is actually going to widen that channel between Pier 1 and Pier 2 to make it easier for those boats to enter and exit their wells. It's going to get,
Especially the guys backing out of 2.
Yeah.
so again, another safety.
Yeah. So, and believe me, I put puzzle pieces together all year last year, figuring out if a guy was a little wider than the other guy, I'd put a boat that had a 6 foot next to a boat that had an 8.5 foot beams, so that I knew that there was room, that they weren't rubbing right against each other. I've only got one. I have 2 docks on one where the guys were literally had one fender between them because without it, they touch. And 2 wells.
Are we sure that boats aren't gonna get bigger and 10 years from now, we're gonna wish they weren't bigger?
No, I'm not worried about that.
You're not worried about, okay.
We have enough people with smaller boats in this
Okay.
community, especially with the fishing community here. And there's a lot of people that go out fishing all the time that I'll fill those wells and a 10-foot beam. Christina, your boat is 10 foot,
Oh, well, thank you. No, 8.5.
see?
Ours is 8.5.
Right? So
Just
most boats are around 9, even like, 40-foot boats are 10.
And that's our biggest promise, 8.7.
Yeah.
8.7.
8.6,
Everybody's my boat's 8.5. My boat's 8.5.
It's Roy's rule of permanence. I'm concerned about making changes that we can't unring the bell on, you know?
Only 20 or 30 years and we'll have to do.
By then, I'll be retired, so yeah.
Other discussion, questions, comments?
The question I had escaped me for a moment was, where were the rest of these subcommittee members? This is a really important decision we're making here, and they have time not to be here. As you pointed out, Tom's here, Christina's here.
And Chad's here, so, Marty's excused and Larry, I haven't heard from.
Larry had chaired this stuff, did he not? Or am I wrong?
Larry was, I'm not sure if he was the chair of the Marina Committee, or if Tom was the chair, but he was,
Yeah.
So, but I mean, Christina and Tom, the committee is in favor of number 3, correct?
100%.
Okay, so
Of the people on the committee, 100% were in favor.
Larry's not sitting out the meeting in protest of. Not at all. It's all right.
FaceTime.
But Roy's question's a good one. This is a major step forward. To be clear, once this group recommends it, then council's next approval step is to essentially start to firm up plans, finances, specifics, right? So this isn't, someone starts digging on Monday. We are the next step in a long chain of steps, but this is, or a necessary step before council moves forward.
And
So.
you're confident due diligence has been done here? I'm not on that subcommittee, but.
Nor am I. But the Marina Subcommittee has been meeting very regularly and very diligently. And with Christina and Tom here, I'm comfortable that when they tell us the committee is behind it, that the committee's behind it. They put in a lot of time and effort into this, and they did that survey. Other folks within the community get involved. So this is something that reflects a lot of work. It reflects a big change from what this body first heard as they were talking about what might be the marina of the future, the changes, the restructure. But this is where the process has led us, and this is what has 100% support, as Tom just relayed from the committee. So, thank you.
One more time, what's the start date, stop date proposed?
Approximately 1 year from now, and possibly, even a wee bit before that, because if we get approval through the council and through this committee, we'll probably close the marina a month earlier, mid-October, early October instead of mid-November
Of
2024.
And
So nobody can get out.
finish date time would
That's
be,
being aggressive.
That's being aggressive.
and we'd be done.
2 years. It'll be in 2 phases. Right now, they were looking at 3 phases when we had our Zoom call on Monday. We kind of narrowed it down to hopefully 2 phases instead of 3 phases. So we're not disrupting everything within not only the marina in the park.
Yeah.
Such a long time.
Discussing like installing electrical on the first season, so that way electrical is all ready to be
All done.
hooked up.
So 2 years
But to
means
my
October
specific question-
26.
Exactly. October of 24 through spring of 25, and then fall of 25 through spring of 26.
That's correct.
And then hopefully open and running in summer of 26 with no further work to be done. Chad, you mentioned that was aggressive. So would that mean that we might go later into the spring of 26, or might it mean that we don't start that everything gets pushed back one
We
full
may
cycle.
not start at that time. If we're able to, that's best case scenario, but that's also dependent upon our approval moving there and then the steps from council and city administration moving forward with.
And then it all goes out to bid.
Right, well, right, pricing and paying for it is thankfully not this group. But I think that to Mike's point, in whatever timing and approval cycle that council decides on, I would like to suggest that we recommend we do whatever we can to minimize disruption to the other park services. And I understand there will be a pricing component. We could do this all in a very short period of time if money weren't an issue. But the longer we don't disrupt things, especially as we're doing electrical, water, or concrete, the happier I am for the other users of the park. So as I don't know that needs to be part of our specific approval, but something that Chad, I'd like to make sure you pass on to the council.
I'd
Stacy?
like to make another comment with respect to prioritization of the project. Will the subcommittee be doing priorities? Because I am worried that if it does get pushed off, I mean, some of these are real priorities, electrical, like I assume that's going to be at the top of the list. And I would be worried if it gets pushed off. I mean, how long can we push off these things that are super important?
So I'm going to suggest that that's a construction sequencing issue that goes far beyond what we can do here. I think the concern is the right one. We want to make sure that we're not spending maintenance dollars on things unnecessarily,
Right.
but that the safety and usability issues are being addressed. I know Tom has the safety issues at the top of mind anyway, as we've heard from him. But the actual sequencing, this is part of the approval process.
I think, and it dovetails nicely to what Stacy just said, that we're going to be asked a lot as commission members, what's going on in the marina. We already are. So I would ask that as this thing progresses, we're kept in the loop so that we have an answer to the residents, which is probably going to be helpful to the Marina Subcommittee and to the council to have all of us as foot soldiers selling this to our residents as the right thing. It's on time or it's not. Here's what you can expect. Disruptions to the park are going to be A, B, and C, and then next year, D, E, and F. And so I mean, I think that, you know, I guess my ongoing drum that I'll continue to beat is that I would like for us to communicate as best we can as a unit, because I think we can help.
And so we'll get to our meeting sequencing under the unfinished business. But Tom, especially if we're not going to meet for a while, and if there's a development from the Marina Subcommittee, if you can work with Chad to help this group understand what's going on, like with the playground, Chad's emails about, you're going to see, right, the construction ongoing.
Yeah.
I think that would go a long way towards Howard's concern. And I think this is going to be something that is going to get a lot of questions within the community, especially because as soon as it starts being visible, people are going to want to know. So I think that's a great request by Howard.
Communication will be important, and once this project moves forward with council's approval, the communication will become quite regular. And I will invite this commission to meet with the Marina Subcommittee as well. Just so you guys see and are at those meetings and know what's going on, because there's going to be a lot of important decision phases that come through. I mean, once we start getting those bids, the schematics, what materials are used, things like that, we're going to be making those decisions along most likely with Avonmarsh. So they're going to.
I don't expect to understand any of it. I just want to have an answer.
I don't want to be on granular.
But we're also not going to have the project start on a Monday and I'm going to put the post out on Friday that, hey, the park's going to close and we're going to start, demolition of Piers 1 and 2 on Monday. So no, communication will be a key factor.
Thank you.
Paul, anything else?
No, I'm ready to vote.
Troy?
No.
Sarah? Christine, I'm going to do you last because you're on the committee. Mike?
I'm good.
James? Christine, anything else we should know? All right, so we have the motion to approve the Avon revised concept number 3 with the caveats that have been put out there in this meeting. So all in favor of recommending that council consider that proposal as presented tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none. All right, Chad, Tom, you've got some work ahead of you. Good luck. All right, so now you had well rental for 2024. You mentioned you were chasing some folks. Anything else, Tom, on that, or have we covered that?
I think we covered it. I have been communicating very well through constant contact with all of our well holders. I've put out 2 constant contacts in the last 2 weeks, reminding them of dates, specific dates and what is needed. And gotten very good responses, like the one that I put out on the 13th was like, oh my gosh, thanks, I forgot. And I think I got 10 in.
You've given them an extension.
I did give everybody an extension. I didn't announce it, but instead of charging people $20 after today, I gave it to the end of the month. Chad and I both talked about that. Instead of charging them $20, as long as I got it by December 1st, I'm not going to hit anybody for $20. I don't want to make anybody mad for $20.
That's fine from my perspective.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Patterson.
Okay, ice rink. It's already that time of the year. We are hopeful that we will have the rink open on Friday, November 24th, possibly Monday, November 27th. Part of that's going to be dependent upon weather and when we can get the jet ice like that down and make sure that the temperatures hold in order to run the system. Another thing that we are looking at conversion of is the compressor system. The current Freon that we use is I think $125 to $150 a pound. So we are looking to switch to an R449, which will be more like $20 to $25 a pound. One is the cheaper one is actually a little bit better for the environment than the other one, but it will struggle more on a warmer day than the one that we have. The current one is also one that they've stopped making. So out on the market each year as it depletes, it becomes more expensive to use. And with an older system, you keep having to make repairs and find leaks and things like that. So to lose something that's $125 a pound versus something that's $25, this makes more financial sense. And regardless if you get a 40 to 50 degree day, the sun is out, even the top notch stuff isn't going to hold up. We saw it last year. We've seen it in the years past. It's out in the open. When the sun's on it, you can't beat Mother Nature. So the oil for it is a little bit more expensive, but we're talking like $150 a gallon and we need about 4 gallons. So in the long run, this is going to be a much more cost-friendly conversion for us. So we're looking at that option right now.
Is that something to do now for this season?
Yep.
And is that something that you can cover within your budget?
Yep.
Okay.
So we should be just fine there. And we're looking good right now. That's what they're working on with the system right now. We ran into a little bit of a hiccup when the contractors hit a water line on the ERV project. And we need that water to that garage in order to run that system. So they were able to make that repair in about a day, which was helpful. The internet's in the phone to that building is another story. But we'll get that corrected as soon as possible. And so we're hopeful again, worst case scenario, we'll be open by Monday the 27th. And then we'll start skating lessons, things like that, soon to follow. One thing we've also looked at is potentially maybe moving the opening day back, as again, it is a lot of electricity, things like that to run those compressors in that building. I'll be bringing my facilities group down to meet in the maintenance garage once those compressors are running so they can see what our park maintenance has to deal with from the end of November through the first week or so of March. And it is a bit challenging to work with. So again, this is another thing we're gonna have to look at in the future is the operation of the ice rink itself with an older unit. There's upgrades we can make, electrical costs, things like that. Does it make sense to open the rink up a little bit later in the season and end it a little bit sooner? It seems to be, especially with talking to some of the gate staff, probably 8 to 10 years ago, at the end of the night when 8 o'clock hit, you were, trying to get 40, 50 people off the ice rink still. Now we still have some weekends that are popular and the occasional Friday night, but about the first month, 3 weeks, the activity is nice there. After that, it's kind of hit or miss and when you get the activity. And I don't know if it's just things that have maybe changed with teenagers and what they're doing, but it doesn't seem like we get the rowdy 20 kids on the ice rink where the adults are kind of complaining of them skating through everyone or skating through each other and kind of getting into the teenage fun that they used to. I don't know what's kind of taking place with that, or just getting the options they have, things that they can do. Again, the weekend popularity is mostly there, but throughout the week and things like that, it seems like the numbers have been down pretty decent the last few years. But again, we're going to look at some activities, again, the skating lessons, things like that will continue. It's just for the cost of running that throughout the season, it might be better off to first, second week of December and shut down right at the end or late February, depending on what our numbers are like. And we can go back and look at what park attendance has been like the last 2 or 3 years to actually get exact numbers. We keep that's all documented so we can see.
I think that's a good idea. You've talked a lot about how over the years, and I've been on this committee for 13 years, and for however long we've had it, it's always trailed off at the end.
Yeah.
They just start to lose interest. But it's fresh and new every year.
Yes. First month, it's there, and then it just kind of fizzles out after that.
Hey, Chad, do you think that there's an opportunity to communicate with residents about their desires here? We've talked about bathrooms and horseshoe pits, and timing of the ice rink is kind of no different. If we had, I may regret asking, but if we had some kind of survey or something that kind of gauged the interest across a broad spectrum of parks and recreation type items, maybe we would know where to focus our attention.
Yeah.
And maybe in an ongoing way, an annual thing or a comment submission opportunity on the website or something.
I kind of thought
Less formal, maybe,
putting
but-
together like a Google Docs form and
Yeah.
just putting out a general 7 or 8 questions of what would you like to see at Windmill that's not there? What would you like to see at Patterson? Depending on the number of responses you get, you might ask, I can think of Mr. Clausen, who's one of our regulars. He's at that ice rink every day. So if you ask him when we'd open up, he'd say as soon as you can and keep it going until the end of March. But
Right.
I think that's what the farms opens theirs up a little bit later than we do. That's why we're able to run 2 sessions of ice skating lessons, but you skip a week or 2 because of the holiday breaks. So you sometimes miss 2 weeks because of Christmas break with New Year's and Christmas. But it also allows people who are around looking for something to do on those days to come down to the ice rink, even if it's for an hour or 2.
Just a thought as we're kind of looking for better ways to push out information, harnessing social media or something, asking for feedback on some of these items might really
Paul's mentioned
clarify.
that too.
Yeah, one of our goals for the overwinter sessions that we talked about earlier was planning ahead a bit and looking at those items. So I think it's a great idea, but perhaps we come back to that one
Another day,
day.
sure, yeah.
Anything else in the ice rink? No. All right. The Patterson Playground, at our last meeting, we had asked for those who were community members with interest or commission members with interest to let Chad know if they wanted to participate. And Chad and I have talked, we did get some community interest, and both James and Howard from the commission have also expressed interest. So what what we're looking at is 7 community members had raised their hands. And with that number and with the importance of this and the emotional responses we heard to some of the people with memories of that playscape, Chad and I had the thought of asking Howard and James to co-chair and take all 7 of the community members who expressed interest and a little bit bigger committee than we had talked about, but let everyone participate. And Chad will share with you all the names and contact information. But, you know, what I would like the 2 of you to do is connect with Chad. And Chad has a lot of information that went into the initial assessment, but figure out what we have, come up with a couple of meetings. And the one thing that I want to make sure is on the list is that we figure out a way to have the community engagement, whether it's a part of one of our meetings that the group comes in and we have public comment, whether it's a separate meeting, but that as you start to get your hands around what the options are and integrate the thoughts and ideas of these 7, that high on the list is that we get the community feedback before we start going down too far the road of what we're doing next. We have some time on our hands before the next meeting. Again, we'll get the meeting dates in a minute. But would love to see you guys get going, get the band together here and see what you can figure out. It is at Patterson Park, but this is a broader issue. So we'll make the 2 of you co-chairs would be my recommendation. I don't think we have to vote on this, but anyone else who wants to join James and Howard on that commission? Mike?
I wasn't here last time, so I didn't have an opportunity to volunteer.
No problem. You'd like to be part of that as well?
I don't need to do the chair thing.
Right, I was gonna say,
Happy to plug in.
we'll put Mike on as a member. We'll keep the 2 of you as the co-chairs. And then the community members, Chad will provide you their contact information. This is something that's gonna take imagination and, you know, we've got a lot of possibilities ahead of us. So any questions, thoughts on the playground other than thank you to the 3 of you and good luck?
I got a question.
Yeah.
What's the name of that playscape? There's a name for it. It was named after somebody. Anybody know?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What's the name of the playscape? But it was named after somebody. There's a man's name attached to it.
I can't say that I recall it.
Well, it's been a while. It's been back quite a while ago.
Put down my.
If you're scrolling back in your notes to 1992 or something, I'm going to be very impressed.
92.
Or whenever they built it.
2015. That's.
Okay.
Okay, I was just curious if you know.
I'll look it up.
Anything else on the playground, playscape? Hearing none. Dog park and the dog park drainage system in particular. Mike, I know you had raised this. Chad?
Yeah, I have some good news. Tom Jenny has assured me that after they are finished with leaf season, they will be able to get in there and work on that drain tile in the couple areas in there to help with those drainage issues. So he felt confident as soon as they are able to finish up with that, they will still have enough time to get in there and do that work. So again, as I can hopefully it's not a day's notice, but as I can get him to inform me when they're finished up with that work, I'll be able to let the dog park visitors know they might be impacted a little bit, but for the overall good of the park and being able to use it throughout the year, this is what we're going to need to do. So
And let James know in case they want some subcommittee people down there, they want some involvement.
I'll let the commission know when they're coming down to work on it for sure.
Cool. Anything else on the dog park drainage? All right, unfinished business. So at our last meeting, we had talked about moving from 4 meetings a year to 6 so that we had less of a gap between some of our meetings. And we had unanimous interest in that. it turns out our bylaws set 4. And so I'm in touch with Nick and we're figuring out how best to address that. Howard also pointed out we have some other issues with our bylaws. And so the intention is still, we hope to meet 6 times, but we don't have a meeting schedule proposed yet. We've got to run through with Nick and he's out of town at the moment. So stay tuned. That schedule will come out, but what we thought was an easy enough change, we will address through the right channels.
Is it a big hassle to change the bylaws? And if so, could we have 4 meetings and 2 special meetings?
So special meetings, there is a separate procedure for, but you're exactly right. That's why I'm reaching out to Nick and council is I imagine that we can change those relatively easily. But certain things are above my pay grade, Mr. Bannon, we're tossing that into that loop. So we'll get back to you on that one. Any other unfinished business? Roy?
Anybody here who know the name Robert Leathers?
Yes, that is,
That's the name of the playscape in Patterson.
Thank you.
We all knew that.
You all knew that.
Leathers and Associates that's who built
That's who built it.
Yeah.
That's it.
and did the assessment for it.
I was going to say they're still involved. The company is still involved. I don't
We're still
know.
involved.
Mr.
Yeah, that
Leathers
went back
is-
to 2015.
Yeah, we got as part of the materials from Chad, I think last meeting, there's the assessment from Leathers that covers everything from the wood life to some of the others. So yes, that's the guy.
So
All right. Any other unfinished business? New business. We have the West Park Winter Social coming up. Chad.
Yeah, that's an event that I think is going on year 8 or 9 now. It's hosted by Joe Coma and Grand Circus Media. That will be taking place on Saturday, November 25th. I believe it will be from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. It'll feature a holiday market, a kids tent, food trucks, an LED truck for the Michigan-Ohio State game, Go Blue. And also, I believe 3 bands on the night. So a whole bunch of activities right down there in the West Park. It'll be set up right about where the roundabout is at Weyburn and Kirchhoff. So again, another area, nice to bring some events down that way and for the businesses at that end of town. And again, I think it's his 8th or 9th year putting it on. Go ahead.
Yeah, Joe and Grand Circus throw a good party. So.
I guess I'm surprised to hear this is not a city event.
It's sponsored by the city and some other foundations, but it's hosted by a third party. And I think that's just the way it started quite a few years ago.
Are we paying for it?
I don't know exactly. I know they do sponsor it. I don't know if it's specifically just with donations of barricades to block the use of some bleachers, things like that, bringing the items down there. But we are considered one of the event sponsors.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like police and cleanup and all that kind of stuff, right?
I believe all of the cleanup and things like that are on Grand Circus's team. I think we supply them with some dumpsters, but they handle trash items like that. I couldn't tell you for sure if there's additional police on for that evening or that they schedule additional. My guess is there's probably 1 extra officer. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell you that for sure.
I thought this
We
was ours.
We don't have any. Yeah, I've got a lot of that over the years. I direct those individuals to it. I can't take credit for it because it usually is a popular fun event, but it's not an event I put on. That's why I tell everyone that reaches out. But it's it is something there. And again, somewhat takes away from the resources that we don't have right now to put something on like that. I just wanted to put that out there so residents are aware of it, that it's coming up. And if they do have any questions, they can reach out to me and I can forward them to the right individuals.
Excellent. Any other new business? Hearing none. Any additional public comment?
Thank you. Frank Ferry, 554 Barrington. I want to take and thank you for considering this concept 3 for the marina.
The water system was an immediate response to a problem 3 years ago. It is now like Benghazi. Okay, your bacteria factors, I've got 41 years of industrial chemicals behind me. One of our other divisions was in the sanitization area. And your biggest problem is, the original system, you had backflow preventers on every outlet. The current system has none. You lose the pressure down there quite frequently. There have been times when entire piers have been down. Anybody that is hooked up, which are quite a few boats, hook up permanently and a backflow right into the system. PEX lines do not generate bacteria, but they're a perfect breeding ground when you have any type of outside influence coming back into them, and also the sunlight going through them. Sanitization, if you looked at anybody who has had a bar or restaurant, the beverage industry handles that type of situation daily. It's a very simple process. It's very economical and environmentally friendly, and basically does not hurt the human being type routine. So it's addressable. You're already addressing modifications to the systems, but you have to get back to where you have backflow preventers on every outlet. Right now, there are none. You have to guarantee that you have pressure. The electrical system is 1950. I was around then. I would not want to go back and redesign what you have there currently. Okay, you're addressing that issue. I hope that is in part of phase one in the redevelopment. For the past 6 years, the well that I've had, the electrical box, okay, was first submerged beneath water. Okay, the entire system is flooded. The outlet receptacle box to my pier, okay, has the faceplates falling off completely. So every time it rains, okay, there's moisture and ingression going right back down into the system. So, you're addressing those things. I do thank the committee for forwarding the proposal to City Council. I've been a well holder. I'm trying to think how far back I go, probably close to 20 some odd years in the marina. And we are stakeholders. I agree that the luxury of the Grosse Pointe Yacht Club Marina concept that was being proposed would be a nice picture, but it's not the community. This community has always been, I'll say, the fishing and the sailing classes. There are more powerboats now than in the past. They've changed, it fluctuates and that stuff. You're addressing those needs by keeping 2, 3, 4, and 5 as they are is beautiful. Okay. The greatest concern I heard on the summer dock was the factor where the proposal was going around that's going to be up to 40 to 60 wells eliminated. That's what got in front of people. And if you want to talk about antagonism, we fought to get in. I was on the waiting list for 8 years before I got in. Okay, I've been there. Go back about 20 years ago, there was a proposal that after 10 years, you would lose your well, and the next person on the waiting list would come in online. And if you want the North and the South to fight again, that was it right there. We, the well holders, I assume, are going to be the ones that are going to be financing this, since it is basically an enterprise zone. So, communication to the well holders is very, very important on the steps. As you want to be notified, we need to be notified, because we are the ones that are going to take and open up our checkbooks. And you've got a waiting list right now that, let's just say it's 50% of people who want to be in, 50%. I have 2 new neighbors. I said, get on the list, because it's a 7 to 8 to 10 year wait, depending on type what you want. So it's a very important feature. It's an economic benefit to our community to have it there. You're addressing it in, I think, a very, very appropriate way, the staging of the concepts of doing it, but get that information out to the well holders. Because right now, I've had people on Pier 4 saying, we did not have power all summer. I'm just saying, statements being made to me. I've had people say, we put solar power on our boats so that we would have the ability to keep our refrigeration systems up. I'm on Pier 2, okay? I know we've had fluctuations in water availability on Pier 2. And there's no notification, and all of a sudden you go down there and you have no water to take and work with, so you're dipping the bucket in, as the old school would do.
and that stuff. So anyway, but thank you very much for the consideration you've given us and the forwarding of it. And at any time, I'll walk away.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry.
Thank you.
Hi, Tim Pollard, 1000 Block, Berkshire. I am here in my capacity as your neighbor and no other capacity. I have to follow that unfortunately, but I can't do that as eloquently as Frank did there. But I was at home and cleaning up my garage after my daughter's down. I just wanted to, similar comments made by Frank, just wanted to thank you all, focusing on the communication, the engagement component there. And just wanted to come here and say that in person. That's all I had for you. So thanks for the discussion tonight.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Councilman.
All right. Any other comments? Hearing none. I get a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Support? All in favor? All right. None opposed? Adjourned.
I know.
Missed about 4 minutes.
So, our next meeting, TBD?
Next meeting is
TBD.
Where you think you're likely before making the
the city spam filter hates my life.
Yeah, hey, Mike, I don't know if you, no, not, well, actually, both mics.
Mike Fancy.
What's the absolute?
I wasn't at the last meeting because we changed the date and I had a conflict. So I can't